it needs to be a change on everybody's level in order to achieve a greater level of efficiency there. So I'm with you to be open to the discussion to move forward with that, but as I always say to the staff, you know, when sometimes they say, gosh, we're so frustrated with why this is happening, I acknowledge that, but I also recognize that if you are frustrated, recognize that the solution may also require you to change. No differently than I share that with you as a board. Your solutions will require you to also change. So I want to try to strike a good balance between that equitably. Because I want to be considerate of your time, and I want to be considerate of their time. So I look forward to working with you to get to whatever those next steps are. I guess that's fine.
I've never had a discussion with any village, either Larry, Chris, or you about what's it. I mean, I would never ask for the Riley thing to be in the packet. I don't think the accounts really, list every check written by the village needs to be. I mean, I looked at it initially, but I don't look at it anymore. I mean, that's the level of detail that I find to be way more than we should be doing.
Well, let me just interject here. I don't know that we'll solve it tonight, but we definitely want that input, because we're hearing it within, we're starting anew here. There's not a lot of process that we're trying to change the process to make it more efficient, and so that we can effectively do our business without frustration, and with, that's the way that we're going to move forward as a village. So everyone I've talked to so far on the board is open to that, and I feel like we've heard some of that, from you and from some other trustees, and I think that if you feel, maybe Rebecca can send out an email at some point when we get to that decision of what, if we do go to a different committee structure, what is it? We've been having the same, questions of what is it that we feel we could do more efficiently, and your response can be collected. You can say it in these individual meetings, you can send an email to staff, to Rebecca. But that is something definitely I think is important, and I agree. Like I think we're all in agreement that there are some things on that agenda that we need to just discuss and come to a full agreement that we're okay with not having as much detail. Yeah. Or some administrative tasks that we're looking at the board for, like renewals of certain things or whatever it may be that you feel once you get used to what we're looking at. And that you feel, I really don't feel this is valuable, we could delegate down. So I am completely open, I know Rebecca's completely open, and I haven't heard from any of the trustees yet that they're not. So if you have suggestions, I don't know, Rebecca, how you want to collect them, certainly you can send them to me and I can pass them along. If Rebecca, you want to send out an email, but I don't know what part in the process we're at, but that is something we should be looking at.
I know what part we're at.
Okay.
We're gonna, I, for myself, I have never, and you guys can share your own experience with different organizations, but Rome wasn't built in a day. The way we operate now was not built in a day. And I think that this week is a testimony to a lot of progress that's been made in a lot of the one-on-one meetings that we've been able to have with trustees. I know I've learned a lot, Allison's learned a lot. And I think that the first priority is really tackling standing committee, no standing committee. And there may be a point, that we try something for a while and we do it and then we realize, oh, aha, maybe this doesn't need to be this way in the future. So I want to also be flexible. I always get a little leery of setting up rigid parameters in terms of how we're going to do that until we see, listen first. So I appreciate you sharing. But then also trying to baby steps to change small pieces of it and then respond to it. Because sometimes you try to change everything at once and it doesn't work out so well. Or people don't understand what direction we're going. Because I don't know if you're anything like me, but we're sometimes creature of habit. So even if we know something's changing, we're still programmed the other way.
I think it's just important to know that it's going to be addressed. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like we've waited a long time for it to be addressed, and it's the right timing. It's just a question of how we get there. And what, is it this week, is it next week, is it a month from now? I don't know the answer to that.
But we're good. what's awesome is I think we have a group who's saying we want to get there.
Right.
That's awesome.
And especially just like being new and coming in, like and looking at the packets and as a total outsider, I'm like, why is this here? Like, it's not even discussed. What's the purpose of this? And I would just skip right ahead and skip past it. So I think, yeah.
I think we're all on the same page then. We haven't had a chance to talk with you.
Yeah, we're gonna talk
You
to
would
you
be
tomorrow
our
morning,
tomorrow.
and it's gonna be great.
Yeah, and I envision that we'll be talking about that as a group, as we move forward as well. So this is just our beginning, introductions of what do we see? Let's reevaluate. Did that help, Trustee Amento? Okay. Does anyone else have questions about the memorandum? I have one, but I'm going to save it to the end.
We're not talking about this, right?
Is that this? Yes, is it called the memo? Is this
Oh,
the
is
memo?
this in your report and presentation of village board? Are we talking about?
Yeah, that's
Yep.
one of the attached templates.
Oh.
Yep.
Yep,
Yep,
so
you can-
I think it falls under B, is that correct, on page 12, memorandum, and then that's the attachment, so.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, Larry came up with this. Larry, what was his last name?
Art.
Art.
All of a sudden I couldn't remember. I was thinking it was Larry and,
Do the
Curb Your
intern.
Enthusiasm. you know?
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Anyway, Larry came up with this form, and, I mean, I think the overview is good. The Vision 2025, I would prefer to have, once we go through our goal process, like, I think a reference to that document that we had, so we're gonna come up with like 4 to 5 goals as a board of things we want to be looking at. Or if there are goals of other departmental, like I would like to tie it to that rather than to Vision 2025 personally. Sustainability, I mean, it is an important thing, but I'm not sure that there's many other things. I would like to have a legislative history. So if we're talking about Bubbler, we have, when we consider the grant, any updates, will we consider the location? I'd like to have all the prior times that the board has considered that issue with hyperlinks, which Wauwatosa does this really well. So you go onto their agenda online and you go to an item and you can link and go back to, here's where the Plan Commission viewed this. It has all the relevant legislative history and links, which you did a great job in that was in the village manager's memo about the police station. Here's the report that was done about the building on this date. Okay. And then we've talked about fiscal notes a little bit too, but I know that's more.
And with fiscal notes that we know we'll have, I think I have in the policy that the finance director would need to review fiscal notes to make sure that it's in the proper format and has the required information.
I have a lot to say about that, but
Okay,
I'll hold it to the end.
okay.
Was there anything else you wanted to mention? We did talk a little bit about attachments for PowerPoints, and I'm just wondering if attachments, it specifies here, any presentational material. If it's new, if it's something new, is it something we want to be directive about? Sometimes, what I want to clarify why I'm asking that, sometimes it depends on the staff person, okay? So when we get our memorandum, when we get this form filled out each time, people view attachments or any of these sections differently. And so it's very inconsistent in my view. It would help to be a little more consistent, and I don't know that people probably just don't know what, if we're going to leave it very general, then you're leaving it up to really Rebecca, which I'm fine with doing too, but to let them know what that means. You know what I mean? So that if one department is attaching PowerPoints, the other department that has a PowerPoint is also doing that. So I don't mind if it's more administratively done, but just know that I have found over the last 2 years complete inconsistencies with the blocks. You know what I mean? Like, and that's not a bad, I'm not saying anyone's doing anything wrong, I'm just saying we haven't defined them and what our expectations are.
Sure.
So attachments, I know, PowerPoints are big, policy, like, so I want to be clear if we can always follow up with more clarity, but in my perspective, attachments are, if we're talking about a liquor license, it really helps to have the policy, unless it's a 20, something, but it does really help me as a legislator, and I remember the last one, I said, does anyone have a copy really quick before we got here, and then I had to read it really fast, so there are some things that if trustees have opinions on what will help you in these categories, that we would just want to suggest, so that it's consistent among all the staff members, because I know that staff would appreciate that too, just to have what are the board's expectations of what they want to see, and rather than criticizing and saying, why is that not here, it makes it so much more collegial if you just know what's important. So for me, it's any kind of legislative, that I'm supposed to be using to evaluate. So if it's a liquor license and I'm supposed to be using some policy to ask questions, plan commissioner, I know that is given to them, like here's your criteria. If there's criteria, attach it, because then I can make my decision based on the true, what I'm supposed to be making my decision on. So that really helps. Records retention, sometimes it is attached, like, oh, look, here's the current ordinance. I've seen that in the packet. And then the next time we talk about something that's not there. So I don't know what those defined parameters are, and you certainly can suggest them, and I'm sure they'll be fine, but as long as they're consistent.
I think, so I didn't realize that Larry created the form.
Larry changed.
Maybe someone told me that.
Before Larry
I
came,
did.
we didn't really have a standard form, like departments
Oh,
were
see, I
using.
didn't understand, okay, so
Departments
when I
kind of
read
using
your
whatever
form, I was
memo
like,
they
oh,
wanted to
yeah.
put together. So Larry that was one of his first initiatives, was to create a
Okay.
standard
Well,
form.
let me just interject a little bit.
Sure.
There was a form. I mean, I remember, if you look back in packets, there was similar information being provided in memos. However, the fiscal note was the sticky point for me as a legislator, and I really had long talks with Larry personally that I needed more information. So he created this form and relayed back, at least to me as a trustee, saying, okay, let's try it and see if you like this fiscal note and what they're providing for you, and we'll discuss it. And right at the end of his term, we had not yet discussed if it worked, and so it was put on the agenda as a future agenda item to say, did it work? And so we just never had that reevaluation period. And so I figured tonight's the night, but if it's extensive, we can do it as, you let me know, and we can always do it as a different item.
Well, I'm just gonna jump in, because I think it'd be great to go back just, because I think it would be, I mean, I like, I come from a rougher type place, because I think it's easier, I don't have to look for it everywhere. So like I put myself, like moving forward, I think it'd be easier with projects if we, perhaps have the staff look at it and get more detail, or maybe Tyler and I can take a look at it and get more detail in terms of what goes in each category. For different categories that will require different feedback from, like, the fiscal note, for example, perhaps Mark or something like that. But having, because when I go back and take a look at them, like what you said, I'm going back and I'm taking a look at, and just like my first week, but I'm going back and taking a look at these bundles, okay, what did they include in there? How did that look? Where did it, So I think that it would be helpful to have something more,
What is,
yeah,
and what.
to also keep it more concise, like boom, boom, boom. Or, so if you start a new project and kind of like work on it, you have your template and just kind of keep going back to the same template, and then you're highlighting what's new, or something like that. I don't know. Maybe that's a bad idea, but I'd like to
The opportunity to think about that.
yeah.
Well, one thing I hate is, and I don't know if it's me, but I know some memos, some of them, the date changes, but the whole memo, the date on the packet,
Yes.
and it's like, just keep the original date, so the document, the only thing changes is the date on some of this stuff.
Oh, okay, so that's good feedback, because a lot of times, like, the same stuff stays up front,
Change the whole thing.
and then the only thing that's new is like the bottom portion or something. you
If
can see where
that's
that
the
would
case,
happen.
then maybe there's just a segment, I get what you're saying, Mike, because
Yeah.
sometimes, like, say, I'm gonna give an example, for video recording, I think it was, there was
It's a great example.
or even
It's a
purchasing
great
policy,
example.
those two, we've spent 6 months, at least 6 months on in committee, you know,
I've
like,
cycled so many memos.
Right?
Yeah, it's the same.
sometimes the date will
Except
just
it-
change, and you're like,
It's a
oh,
new
shit.
update, that's 4 sentences
really
Or did
long.
anything change?
Yeah.
Right, and so, just think about that, I don't know the solution, but is it, you know, you say draft two, if something's minor changed, then you say draft two of, or is it, it's exactly the same, do you keep the date? But that has been an issue, when you've met on an issue so many times, sometimes that memo changes and sometimes it doesn't. And it helps, if we had a way to know, we wouldn't waste our time having to read it all.
You can almost put a date up front in the memo, and then you can put a new date later if there's a new update, so you know you only have to go to the new date to see, you know, that little update.
Right.
Well, if you
I
had
can't
the,
wait till
if you had the
they're
legislative
Yeah,
history
we can
that
talk about that, yeah, that's
I mean,
good.
if you had the legislative history that I was talking about, then you could say, you know, initial draft, this
Yeah.
date,
Mhm.
go here, and this is the next draft, you know.
I just need agenda management software. They have